Welcome to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. How about a little Jean-Paul Sartre for the morning? Huh? How do you like that? Listen, I'm Max Keiser, people. You must love people. Men are admirable. I want to vomit. And suddenly there it is, the nausea. The cereal, the nausea. The beard, the nausea. The Fruit Loops, the nausea. Wow, I feel like I'm back in France. Stacey.
It's like we're having existential crises all over the world as people realize that all we have left, the entire existence of mankind, the epitome of mankind, is never-ending bubbles. And either you're on it or you're off it. And if you're a loser or a winner, and that's it. And the losers are not very happy right now. Over the weekend here in the United Kingdom, in London, Cereal Cafe attacked by affordable housing protesters in East London. Here's the mob, you might call them, of protesters leaving Old Street Station, heading down there. And as you can see, it says white collar factory behind it. There's a new building going up. And as we know, this is kind of the new existence we have, is these white collar factories, these sort of app economies where only like 2 or 3 people make a lot of money and nobody else. There's no wealth creation going on anywhere else in the economy other than to be a lucky winner.
Well, it's not a new economy. It's just an extension of the old economy from the 80s, where you're replacing work with financialization, securitization, speculation, deregulation. And so now this has moved into the millennials who want to get little cubicles at the white collar factory in Shoreditch here in London and crank out apps to become rentiers on the global population of people that are actually doing stuff for $2 a day. So that's just a continuation. And those who are living in East London don't want to be turned into the victims of an app rentier generation, pushing them out, so they are protesting.
You know, apps are fine. I use them all the time. They help my life a lot. But the fact is, you also have on top of it the likes of George Osborne, the likes of Gordon Brown before him, creating winners and losers in this economy, and creating an economy whereby you can earn far more money from your house. So we have these bubble economies where more and more people are being left off, whether it's in Los Angeles, which has declared a homeless emergency, whether it's Vancouver or Hong Kong. We see protests in Singapore, we see protests in Hong Kong. The same thing, people are being driven out of their homes, and it doesn't matter how much they work, they can never work hard enough to afford that home. And then here's the tweet from this cereal cafe. It's called Serial Killer Cafe. They say, "Tonight we were attacked with paint and fire by an angry mob of 200. Riot police on the scene." And here's a photo they posted of outside their window, and you can see massive crowds outside of their cafe, and they see this as a hipster cafe. They see this gentrification. You see it across in Brooklyn as well. People being forced out through what they see as some of the population that has the access to the deposit to get onto this Ponzi scheme housing project, forcing out all these locals who have lived there for decades and decades and generations that are being forced out because they can't afford to live there anymore.
Well, we talk a little bit about the Cereal Cafe and what they do, who they are, what's sold there. It's cereal. They count
American cereal,
like Fruit Loops,
yeah,
or Count Chocula, or Cheerios. Now, in the news in the last couple of weeks, you've had this idea of initiation rituals for people that go to Oxford or the elites, and the Bullington Club, which is part of this elite Oxford public schoolboy educated folks, one of their initiation rituals going back, 40 or 50 or 60 years, is that they go to a homeless person and they burn a 50-pound note in their face, because they want to inculcate into that generation a total contempt for poor people. That's part of the initiation. We had something with David Cameron, obviously, last week. I'm not going to go into it again, but he was involved in an initiation ritual.
He now denies that.
He denies that he was involved with. Look up Piggate, and you'll find out more. But for this new generation of millennials, this is the new initiation ritual. This is the equivalent of burning a 50-pound note in somebody's face, because for £5, you can buy a box of Fruit Loops and a quart of milk, and you can have 30 bowls of cereal. Well, let's say 10 bowls of cereal, just to play it safe. But instead, by going into the Serial Killer Cafe in Shoreditch and paying £5 for 1 bowl of cereal with a splash of milk, you're telling all the poor people in the neighborhood, you're sticking it in their face. You're putting their nose into it on the sidewalk and saying, you see, our daddies work in the city and they get quantitative easing all day long. We don't have to work. We're rentiers. We all come here to eat 5-pound bowls of cereal, and you're the poor people. We're pushing you out. So this is just a continuation of the same class struggle in the UK. We're just seeing it now reinvented in Shoreditch, where this is being played out at the Serial Killer Cafe.
In fact, the group that did this is called Class War. So the quote from the BBC article about this goes, the demonstration was organized by a group called Class War, which was protesting against unaffordable London housing. A statement on their website reads, we don't want luxury flats that no one can afford. We want genuinely affordable housing. We want community. Working class people are being forced out of their homes, but we won't go out without a fight. Now, that's interesting that they want community, which of course, a lot of this problem is caused by Margaret Thatcher declaring there's no such thing as society. We don't want communities. Communities are harmful to the profit of the individual. So she handed all these properties that still exist, that basically you have the right to buy at a huge discount your council properties. Perhaps here's the brothers who own the cafe. Perhaps they were the beneficiaries. We don't know. But they're obviously, they look like hipsters. They're
Thatcherites. They're inheriting the Thatcherite mantra that to become a rentier is great and to destroy society is beautiful. And I would go on to say that going back to the old days where you had to burn a 50-pound note in a homeless person's face, that is, and the objective is to destroy any empathy that the individual might have, because if you have empathy and you're leading government, you might actually care about your actions.
Yes.
And those people without empathy become bankers, they become stockbrokers, they become MPs. But the new way to destroy empathy, of course, is with drugs. So a lot of these guys or whomever, as children,
you don't want to say those guys, but
whomever,
that generation.
That generation is being given Ritalin or other drugs as children to try to squeeze out any empathy possible. So it's all done pharmacologically now. They don't need to burn the 50-pound note or have allegedly have sex with farm animals now. You can do this all with drugs.
And also, you mentioned financialization, and we've turned our economies over to financialization, and this is all about basically Ponzi scheme. So you want to get in early on that particular bubble that's about to happen, and the bubbles, i.e. the Ponzi, usually can, with our sort of size of economy, tends to go for about anywhere between 5 and 10 years. And then if you're left off that bubble, you can't get on it. In the UK, you had the right to buy your council estate, that the taxpayers built these properties in order to avoid a situation where you only have like a Monaco-like city. And then those people got to make huge profit. We had the case, of course, in Chelsea recently, where somebody who got to buy their property for like £100,000 from the state, from the taxpayer, then sold it for 1.1 million. And then now, because there's no more Ponzi left, there are no more council estates to sell off, they're going for the housing associations. That's the next thing coming. And the housing associations I saw this weekend were trying to come up with their own solution quickly of how to deal with this before the government forces them to sell these private properties. They're not-for-profit associations who own all these properties that they rent to low-income people and middle-class people.
Well, where Thatcherism failed was that by allowing all these council estates or public housing to be sold off at these huge discounts, supposedly to create a generation of homeowners. Simultaneously, they also destroyed things like the NHS, the education system, transportation system. So the jobs that those people had who were living in those flats were destroyed, so they couldn't even afford to stay in those flats that they had bought at these huge discounts. So they end up selling them to people who accumulate 50, 60, 70 properties. So you end up exactly where you were before. You have a rentier society, you have plutocrats at the top, you have these buy-to-let barons who own dozens or 100 apartments, and all of the underlying workers who actually do stuff are pushed out to the margins, and this is now being played out in Shoreditch at an unlikely storefront location that sells boxes of Cheerios to hipsters, so-called hipsters, the new generation of class warriors.
A lot of the reason why the East End of London has boomed is because of taxpayer funds as well and government intervention, whether it's through the Olympics and all the buildings that happen there, Crossrail, DLR, all these lines that were brought out there, paid for by the taxpayer. Some people who happen to live there, they quadrupled, quintupled their wealth. Same thing in Manhattan, by the way, west side of Manhattan, very deprived area, Hell's Kitchen. It was so bad it was called Hell's Kitchen. Properties now are gazillions of dollars there because of the High Line, paid for by taxpayers. So this is the argument for the land value tax, of course. But the reason why that was shocking to me, this story about this this business being attacked, was that on our website, Charles Hugh Smith, who is a very popular guest on our show, he wrote this piece only 12 hours before this thing happened. He said, time to trade in your Jag, Benz, BMW for a dented Econobox. Days of rage are coming. It's time to trade in your Jag, Mercedes, BMW, and maybe your Prius, Volvo, Lexus, etc. before the days of rage start. As I've explained before, as the prosperity tide recedes, the ugly reality of wealth inequality is exposed, the rage of the masses who have been losing ground while the financial oligarchs, the new nobility, and the technocratic class reap immense gains for decades has been suppressed by the dream that they too could join the upper caste. But once the realistic odds of that happening low sink in, the days of rage will begin. So he was saying these obvious signs of like, they'll go after, it'll be like dégonflé in Paris. They'll like attack specific cars because they can't go after the KPMGs and PwCs and the big banks and things like that. Because as he said, like we have this surveillance state, we have the FBI, the CIA targeting activists who go after the connected elite that are protected by the state. But they'll start going after things like Serial Killer Cafe, and it's brought on by the central banks, by this wealth and income gap growing because of policy. No matter how well-intentioned it might have originally been, it's created a situation where there are losers who can never become winners because it's a Ponzi scheme. And to get onto that, if you're the last chump standing in a Ponzi scheme, you lose everything.
Right, and this group that attacked the Serial Killer Cafe, they don't identify as anti-austerity or anti-tax or this or that. They just simply refer to themselves as the mob. And that's where we are in the cycle of class war, is that you have an amorphous mob. That's it. They're just the mob, and you have to deal with the mob, and they can show up at any time and torture your car, your store, etc. We got to mosey on.
But had they been given a property for free by Thatcher to flip it, they would not be part of the mob.
But they ran out of Ponzi's. They ran out of free property. They ran out. It's all over.
Exactly.
All right, well, stay tuned for the second half. More of this scintillating discussion to come. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to go to Amsterdam and talk with Matt Harms of Start Chat. Now, I just met Matt for the first time after really talking with him for a long, long time, but I met him for the first time at the reInvent Money Conference in Rotterdam this past weekend, and we had a fascinating conversation about his new project called Start Chat. It's financed through crowdfunding site banktothefuture.com. And, of course, it got started on StartJoin, and it uses StartCoin. So Matt is very much, he's made it through the pipeline of this new economy, this new crowdfunding and cryptocurrency reality, and he's changing the world, Matt. Matt, are you changing the world?
We're trying to.
So tell us about StartChat. What is it?
Well, it's a decentralized encrypted chat with financial services, and we integrated Bitcoin and StartCoin with Shapeshift capabilities.
Right, so Shapeshift, of course, is another company we've talked about on this show. It allows you to swap alt currencies, various cryptocurrencies on the platform instantaneously. It's a fantastic business. And StartChat, now you just raised $90,000 in 48 hours on Bank to the Future, so you've already been able to raise some equity money on this. And you're doing this completely outside of the banking system, outside of all systems. This is the new system. Do you feel a sense of freedom?
I feel a great sense of freedom. We're getting a lot of great feedback from the community, from all over the world, from people from Brazil, Australia, from Africa, England. It's been great and fantastic. We've basically raised the funds in the first 48 hours on Bank to the Future. So it's going absolutely fantastic, and we're very excited for the future and the new features that we'll be implementing as well.
Yeah, it's so inspiring what you're doing there with the technology. I know at StartCoin Holdings and StartJoin, we're ready to embrace a whole new technology team, which we're going to start up this week. And because we started to get bigger than what we had the ability to handle on the tech side, so we're adding a new tech. You guys are doing so many great things in Amsterdam. Talk a little bit about the Netherlands and the startup scene and the crypto scene in the Netherlands, because it seems like it's booming there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, basically here in the Netherlands, it's really going good because we have a lot of acceptance with innovations, Bitcoin boulevards. You can buy and sell Bitcoins with your bank accounts directly with your bank pass. And it's really accepted here, and it's been growing really fast. So it's quite exciting to see Amsterdam become a cryptocurrency hub, and big companies in the cryptocurrency space also coming here.
So tell us about the regulators and the government in the Netherlands. What's their position specifically toward cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin? How it sounds like it's pretty easy to use there.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about more what the government's saying?
With Bitcoin right now, the central bank has basically made it legal so they can confiscate your Bitcoins. So in our eyes, we see that as being legitimized, in other words. So, and with Bitcoin here, you can basically order food online, pay for electricity, send money to your friends via their bank account. You can basically do everything with Bitcoin here right now in the Netherlands.
And so talk a little bit about the actual, the app itself. So it's a combination of chat and crypto. You demonstrated it to me there over the weekend. And so you can send crypto back and forth through chat. Just walk through the application a little bit more so people can get a feeling for, and I know that you've got people now, I think you've got, how many thousands of users do you have in the first few months on Start Chat?
Since our official launch of 26th of July, 2015, we have 45,000 downloads already. And, it was basically to make it very user-friendly for people to be able to chat, just like sending a picture, but then sending funds across the globe without having any crypto experience. So you click for a picture, you click on coins, you choose Bitcoin or Startcoin, and you just put them out and send. So it's 2 clicks, and it's been sent to your contact without having to know any knowledge or Bitcoin wallet or whatsoever.
Yeah, the user interface is so easy to use. I'm thinking about having you redesign the whole user interface for StartJoin and StartCoin, because you guys really know how to create user-friendly interfaces. It's really fantastic. Now, we did also have a chance to meet your friend Bacon. Is Bacon, is he with you now?
It's funny because my dad is walking Bacon right now.
Okay, Bacon is the dog who's become the mascot for Start Chat. And of course, we did have a chance to meet up in Rotterdam at the Reinvent Money conference. What was some of what are the couple of the takeaways that you walked away from that conference? It seemed we had Andreas Antonopoulos speaking, and it was really quite an event. What were some of the highlights for you for the Reinvent Money conference?
Well, I would say it would be Andreas. He's a fantastic speaker, and I love the fact because he talks a lot about the distributing power of Bitcoin and the self-sustainable of that. And there's a lot of value if you think about the power and the hashing power of a self-sustainable network that would cost billions to maintain for a normal company. So I like when he talks about the distributing power of the network and the self-sustainability of it and the value what that brings to the table. So he's a very interesting speaker to listen to.
I was if I can just talk about something else with you for a moment, Matt, because we travel the world and we see how central banks and quantitative easing have affected different countries in different ways. Obviously, in the UK and in the United States, this amazing amount of money printing has resulted in a real estate bubble and a stock and bond bubble. But in the Netherlands, it's quite interesting because the banks are not participating in this fractional reserve Ponzi scheme in the housing market, and house prices in the Netherlands are actually going down. I mean, this is really remarkable in a world that's hyperinflating with quantitative easing. Why is that? Why did the Netherlands choose to walk away from participating in this enormous it's a little bit outside of your day-to-day remit. I understand that, but if you have any thought about that, I think for our global audience, it might be interesting.
Yes, the problem with the banks right now and the prices going down is the average person or family does not get 100% mortgage here in the Netherlands anymore. 10 years ago, that was a normal thing where you could get 100% of your mortgage. So even the people that are able to buy houses right now are selling at a loss and also having to wait maybe a year and a half to sell that house at a loss. I have a personal friend that bought a house for like 180,000 euros in Rotterdam and sold it for 145 and had to wait a year and a half and was forced to sell it at a big loss. So
this has become more of a renter's market. And now, of course, the rumor is that the European Central Bank will start to buy mortgage-backed securities as part of this global initiative to keep the bubble blowing. And so so the Netherlands could be in line for a little bit of a reversal if the ECB has its way. But into all this crazy banking shenanigans has emerged Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And of course, it was birthed during the last major crisis of the 2008-2009 period. The white paper from Satoshi Nakamoto was published, and we had Bitcoin, which was the first advance in money, probably, going all the way back to, as Andreas Antonopoulos spoke in his at the event, he was saying that you'd have to go all the way back to the adoption of gold and precious metals as a currency to find a similar step change in the evolution and revolution of money. And so here we are with crypto and Bitcoin. The adoption rate of Bitcoin, to me, seems to be driven by crises. So when when the Cyprus economy was blown up and the banks confiscated wealth, price of Bitcoin went up dramatically. It appears as though Europe is poised for another confiscation round. They have negative interest rates in Sweden. Sweden will soon be charging people 0.5% a year just to keep money in the bank. Negative interest rates. So what are your thoughts on the adoption rate of Bitcoin? Isn't this going to drive people into crypto and into Bitcoin when the banks are not only not paying you anything on your money, but they're confiscating, and they call it negative interest rates? It's just outright theft. Matt, your thoughts?
No, the good thing and the most important thing about Bitcoin, which the bankers, some of them don't know, Bitcoin is the best innovation since the gold standard in the monetary system. So there is no other way that they have to adopt, and that we will help in that process as well. So
right. So there's I think, again, the point made at the conference was that we don't need to help, push the banks away. They're going to blow themselves up. So
no, exactly.
Yeah.
They're already losing.
So we just have to basically be prepared for that. And so finally, let's just revisit this crowdfunding you have going on Back to the Future. You've raised $90,000 in 48 hours. Of course, people can still put money toward it. Let's say if you raised another 90,000, for example, or another, I don't think you're going to do that, but let's say you raised another 20 or 30,000. What would you do with that extra money? Would it put it into marketing? Would you hire more technology as an entrepreneur? What would you do with it?
Right now, we will keep innovating. The blockchain, Bitcoin technology is moving at a fast pace, so we have to progressively keep up with the innovation. So adding the SMS coins remittance service is one extra feature, and then we have another very exciting feature that we'll announce after we close the funding on Bank to the Future, which will be very innovative and disruptive as well. But with the progress of the innovation, what is currently going on.
Okay, let me just cut in because we have about a minute left. Talk about SMS money.
Okay, so it'll be a feature in our app on smartphones, but basically you can send an SMS with the code of the transfer that you're sending with cryptocurrency. So non-smartphone users across the globe can also accept cryptocurrency transfers. And you could send hundreds of little transfers as a remittance service if you wanted to, or big ones. So that would open up a market for like 2 billion people that don't have smartphones, and also for underdeveloped countries to be able to send very small micro transactions for no cost.
Right, so this is going to revolutionize places like Africa, for example, where they have millions and hundreds of millions possibly of phones, not necessarily smartphones, but now they're suddenly SMSing, they're texting money back and forth. That's quite a step change in their whole history of money. Is that correct?
Yes, this was actually an idea from a user that we got that contacted us, telling about how difficult it was to send money to his family in Africa. So this is how we came up with the concept, is getting feedback from our users.
Right. Oh, that's fantastic, Matt. So we're going to check in with you. As a matter of fact, I probably will be seeing you again this weekend if we can all get that arranged. But it sounds like the project is really coming along. Sorry we didn't get a chance to see Bacon, your dog, who is really the star of Amsterdam. Fantastic dog, Bacon is. And so we got to go. But thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Thank you so much, Max.
Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, Matt Harms of Start Chat. You can find his project listed on banktothefuture.com. If you'd like to get in touch, tweet us at Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.